like I say, we'll talk about torque and temperatures and the various items that go along with that. And maybe you'll learn, pick up a couple of things. I'd like to think so. So, when we're talking about torque, okay, the physics definition of torque is turning effort against friction. This is different than torque of an engine. So so when I'm talking about torque here, I'm not talking about torque like on the back end of an engine. It's twisting, yes, but this is a different thing we're talking about here. Okay? When you torque a bolt, what are you doing? What's the goal here? Why you're torquing a bolt to a value?
You get them all even if you've got a set of them, or you're torquing it to its maximum stretch point.
You're trying not to overstretch the bolt.
Yeah.
Okay, you guys are in the ballpark. We use a torque to apply a uniform clamping force between two components. Okay? So, for example, I have a specified torque range for a head bolt because I want a certain amount of clamping force between the head and the block. Not enough clamping force and you blow the head gasket, or it doesn't seal correctly. Too much clamping force and you'll distort the head and you'll more than likely break the bolt, or the bolt will fail in service at some point. You've all had that fun. Somebody's broken off a head bolt. I got lucky. The one head bolt I had to deal with was on a 6V92. It was the lower head, so I could stand right there. Okay? And I got all my tools out ready to try and extract this busted off bolt. It was deep in the block. So I I got my extractor set out. I center punched a hole. I had a left-hand rotating bit. Started drilling the hole, caught the bolt, and spun it out for me.
That was a good.
Oh, I'm like, sweet, there's my Christmas present. You know how they say you do that once in a lifetime? That was it. I was like, okay, every broken bolt from here to now is going to be a fight, but I got this one out tonight. You know, so I got the bolt out, I had the head back on, you know, torqued it up, put the blower on, put the turbo on. The end of the night, I was parking the bus, and the boss was like, what, you're done? I was like, yeah, man. The thing came out in like 40 seconds. Just spun it out. I left it on the drill bit. Took the bit out of the drill and laid it on my toolbox. And I was like, there you go. So that can happen.
You still have it?
Oddly enough, I had it in when I left the company, when I left Long Beach, it was in the top drawer of my toolbox. And when I brought it home, it was still, my brother tossed it out long ago, but it made it till after I left the company. You know, this big old Detroit head bolt sticking
years?
See, I left Long Beach in 98, so 08, 18, 20, 22 years ago. Wow. Wish you hadn't asked that question. I did the math, I'm freaking old. Now my knees hurt. Now my back hurts. Okay. So, the reliability of, for example, the longevity of the head gasket, how long that thing stays in service, is due in large part to how well do you clamp the head to the block. If I do a half-assed job, I don't follow the manufacturer's torque sequence, and I don't follow his torquing procedure, because sometimes it's a one and done, sometimes it's multiple steps. You know, take the lower exhaust side head bolts and torque them all to, 35 foot-pounds. Then take the interior bolts on the inside and torque them to 35 foot-pounds, and then use a sequence and torque them all to 77 foot-pounds. And then torque them all to 90 degrees. You're like, oh my God, that's 26 head bolts. There are some of the earlier Cummins, you torque them to 77 foot-pounds, then you'd back them all off and run them down to another value, and then you'd apply a torque turn. So you're like, wow, this is nuts. Now if you've ever seen how Cummins does it in the factory, the block comes down the line and it uses lasers to line it up, so it comes down the line and it stops and it lines up, and this apparatus comes down like, how you got an automotive lift to that hydraulic ram that comes up. This thing comes down on this ram, and this guy lines up all 26 of these sockets on these long extensions, and he gets it all set up. Green light comes on, you hear this, lifts up the head's torque, and then moves down the line. And you're just like, wow. Versus back in the day, one guy was doing this. all day.
So does it do 2 steps, I wonder?
You can't tell in the video. It kind of sounds like it because you hear, it's like. So I'm wondering if it kind of pre-torques it and then it
And
just
then
torques.
there's a 90.
And then probably, and then it just comes up. Block moves down, the next one comes up. Guy brings it down, so he gets the green light. Gets done, up it goes, the next, I was just like, wow. That's why Cummins says you'll never put a head on in the field as well as they do it in the factory. And, seeing that, I can understand
I
why.
guess you can get all 14 guys to help you out.
Well, no, there's 26 head bolts on it, you get 26 torque
It's a
wrenches.
big shop.
Yeah, big shop. So, okay, everybody, on the count of 3, pull. 1, 2, 3. All right, you were late. Okay, back it off, let's do it again. So yeah, it's kind of impressive. And it's all done with lasers to line the thing up. You hear it shuddering underneath and it gets lined up. So guy's done. Green light. He steps back. Nails it. It's pretty cool. I imagine most plants are probably like that. Ford would be the same way. Okay, now, so when we talk about torque wrenches, you've all seen them. Okay, they come in as small as 1/4 inch, 1/8 pound. It's a dial indicator type wrench. Okay. To get this thing to work, first you got to be able to see it. Okay, so this is now it's important you look at this. This is inch pounds, not foot pounds. I had a guy look at it, went 50 foot pounds. How does that work? It's like it doesn't. Right? How do I go from inch pounds to foot pounds? If I got an inch pound reading, let's say I got 144 inch pounds, how do I know to put that to foot pounds?
12.
Divide it by 12. If I've got, 12 pounds. If I've got 12 foot pounds, I want to know how many inch pounds. How do I get to that?
244.
144.
140.
I multiply it by 12.
Wait, go by 12.
12 times 12 is 144.
Oh, we should get his on.
What I did say 144, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I'm not a math guy either.
Yeah.
Actually, I had that written in my hand. Okay. So it's important because I watched a guy in the shop one time. He had a little 5/16 screw or nut on a bolt. He's got a 1/2 inch drive torque wrench. I'm like, what are you going to do? So I'm going to torque that to 100 foot pounds.
Was it a grade 44?
Yeah, I'm like, it's a 5. I mean, you got to use a little common sense here. If you look at a spec and you read it as 144 inch pound or foot pounds, and you got a 5/16 nut, a little flag should come up. Wait a minute. There's no way I'm going to torque that to 144 foot pounds. Oh, that's an inch pound reading. Okay. This is the same guy that would look at this and get a pipe and think he's going to go 144 foot pounds with it. He'd be like, okay, Mike, I think I got this. Right? So you got that little dude, and it can go all the way up to this guy. You've all seen wrenches this big. There's even bigger ones out in the oil field. If you've ever seen an oil field wrench, holy crap. They're like the length of the table. Okay? And these are called micrometer style wrenches. Okay, so you see how you got it's kind of hard to see, but you see how you've got the big numbers here? And then I've got the little numbers here. So if I line this up to,
Or shop place. Is that pounds?
yeah. No, that noise was my wrist popping actually. I've been waiting for that for a couple hours. And it finally popped, so I was like, oh, I feel much better now. All right, so when I line the 0 up on the center line, it's right at 175. See the 0 on the center line there, and it says 175. Okay, that's wrench is set for 175. Now I can go in 2 pound increments on this. I looked up, this thing's about $1,000 these days.
Which
No,
what is it? Precision instrument?
Yeah, no, it's Snap-on. Snap-on 3/4,
Non-directional.
Non-directional, right. Okay.
We're right-handed.
Right. So 0 line is lined up with that 175 line. So we're 175 foot-pounds, right? Now, I almost clocked a guy this morning, so I gotta watch, make sure your head isn't in the way of my wrench.
Don't worry, I'm watching you.
No, I just don't wanna hurt my wrench.
You don't have anybody here today.
So, I know, so if I move it to the second long mark, that's 177, that's 175 plus 2. And this particular wrench goes all the way up to 19 foot-pounds on here, so I can go from 175 to 199. Yeah, I'm not a math guy, whatever 19 and 75 is. Yeah, 190 something, okay? Now, what you don't want to do is you get the lock the hammer, and then you're turning it as you're trying to torque it. And so your values change considerably.
That's just the one way.
Yeah, it's just a one-way guy. Okay. Now, the other thing is, and this is just me personally, I don't ever loan out my torque wrenches. Never. Because, you know, like anything else that's not yours, how well do you take care of it?
Nobody cares.
Exactly. So you loan yours out, and the guy gets pissed off, he's like, damn it, chucks it on the bench. Or he drops it, and he's trying to pick it up as he kicks it down the shop floor because he's a retard. Oh wait, I'm sorry, he's mentally developed, he's mentally delayed. Okay? And then when he hands it back to you, hey, is it all right? Yeah, man, no problem. Did you drop it? No, we're good. So now you grab it, and you go to torque your flange bolts to 107 foot-pounds, and you're breaking them off. You're like, what the? Because he screwed your wrench up so bad, it's out of calibration. Okay, so again, now are you guys allowed to use your own personal torque wrenches, or do you have to use the company wrench?
Up to half inch, yeah.
Uh-huh.
I mean, we can actually use, if you have a 3/4, but I don't have my 3/4 at work.
So, but you're allowed to use your own wrenches.
Yeah.
See, we're not. We got to use the company.
I'm good with that.
I'm not. How well do you think the guy takes care of the company wrench?
Doesn't matter. So it's all on you,
Yeah.
right?
It's all on the
It's all on the company, right?
Yeah, but you're still gonna have to clean up the mess.
There's no signing sheet.
There's no signage sheet?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry, guys. Let me go get it. I'm sorry.
It's not official.
Gotta start over. I'm not late.
Frank hasn't came in here yet.
Everything is there, they don't have to be fucking.
Yeah.
They'll keep track of it.
I was sent home. We get 1 minute.
Come in, sign in.
I can't remember the name of the company who makes those for Snap-on. It's like
Monday
CGI.
then, last week couldn't come, they
Yeah.
didn't have a big
Because
system.
they're not Snap-on. It's another company.
Figured it was a long shot and I couldn't.
Like the twin beam Snap-on, Precision Instruments.
Good.
Huh?
And you
Or
get
3 and 5?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Snap-on wants for their half inch
Yeah.
twin beam, which is the flat one with the dial on the side.
Don't worry, I got.
All right, here we go.
I got a 12-year-old. About to be 13.
I think $500 or $400.
I'd still trade it up.
350 is the cheapest you get off the Snap-on.
So,
You buy it online for like 200. The Precision Instruments.
I got all the girls. I'm not looking forward to it.
so we're getting our last 299 bus buy with no zero emission vehicles. It's the last one we can do. After that, the next bus buy's got to be 25% zero emission vehicles. So 299
What you guys get?
25% of your buy has to be zero
buy
emission?
has to be on the next bus buy. The next any bus buy after I think it's 2023 has to be 25% zero emission.
How many units are you guys get?
Wow.
What are you guys getting?
It's out to bid, but we'll probably get flyer CNGs like we have now.
Oh, so the bid's out?
Yeah.
Gillig's gonna get it.
I don't know. Let's hope not.
Gillig's been pressing lately. Oh, no, you're gonna get lucky and get some Eldorados like MTA. MTA went with a big Eldorado buy.
Yeah, they're gonna have big Eldorado
I
problems.
heard that, what do you call it too? What's the one Arcadia?
Electric and
No, the bus.
Orion?
First, or, I can't remember right now. It's the neighborhood I live in too.
Torrance?
Nah, the white buses.
Bluebirds.
No, I think they're getting the same as Metro, but I'm just trying to remember the name of the company.
It's not Gilligan, it's something else.
Nova
Nova bus,
No, the one that I just said, that you said they're gonna have a bunch of problems.
Eldorado.
Eldorados, yeah.
I hope we don't get them.
Foothill?
That's it, Foothill.
Foothill's got some Eldorados. They got this behemoth of a bus that's got 5 doors on it.
Big doors too.
5 doors.
Big doors.
Yeah, they got three on the curbside and 2 on the street side because it runs in like a
What?
It's their bus rapid transit, and it runs on like a train platform, and it's got loading and unloading on both sides.
So not a lot of seating then?
No, it's still 40 or 60 foot.
It's still a 60-footer, but it's less seats.
Yeah, because it's got 5 doors. So you got more ways to get in it, but less places to sit down. Go figure. All right, now, so dial reading and delivery torque might not be the same, and this can change. So what it's saying here is if I set my torque wrench to a value, we'll just use my little guy here because I'm tired. I don't want to pick up anything heavy. Okay, and I set this thing to a reading. We'll just call it 50 foot-pounds, okay, or 50 inch-pounds. Okay, and if I'm torquing in line with my bolt, okay, my reading and my value will be approximately the same. And I got a video here that kind of proves this point. Okay, so if I got it set for 50, it might be 49.3. Okay, unless I'm building a space shuttle, that counts as 50. But if I've got a universal on it, and I'm up here torquing, and my bolt's here, and I kind of torque like this, I'm going to be significantly lower than the value that I set on the wrench. Okay, if I'm on a universal. Now, how many of you guys have had to torque a bolt using a universal? It's not ideal, but sometimes access, that's the only way you can do it. But just be aware that anytime you're not 90 degrees to the bolt and on the same plane, if you're up here turning, your value is going to be less. Is there a formula to calculate that? Oh, I'm sure there is. Angle and all this, but I don't know what it is. Okay. The other thing about torquing is, I would venture to say a lot of mechanics, actually I'll use this little guy again, a lot of mechanics do it incorrectly. Okay, so they're sitting there torquing a bolt, they're jerking on it, right?
Yeah.
And they're jerking, and it clicks and it goes an additional 40 degrees. And like, okay, it's tight. Well, yeah, maybe. Okay, but is it too tight?
Yeah.
You know, they're like, click. Yeah, I got it. Wow.
Some guys use their body weight too,
Yep,
that's not.
They
Yeah.
do that on the tranny bolts.
yep.
They're like this one. It's already clicked right here.
Click, you know, and then they walk away, and you're like,
No,
that's not a torque turn. That's not a torque turn spec. That was torque to 100 to 140 foot-pounds and stop. You went 140 and 60 degrees, man. That's not what it called for. And we'll talk about the difference, because there's a big difference between one way of torquing and another. It does different things to the bolt. Okay. The other thing is, where's my torque wrench most accurate? The top of its reading, the bottom of its reading, or the middle of its scale? Scale being if I've got a wrench that's from 0 to 100 foot-pounds, right? And I want to torque a bolt to 7 foot-pounds. Would that torque wrench be accurate if it's a 0 foot-pounds to 100 foot-pounds? Because I could set it for 7, but how is it going to be accurate down at that low end of the range?
No.
If I want to torque a bolt to 100 foot-pounds, and I set my wrench to 100 foot-pounds, am I going to be accurate?
No.
No. But if I've got a torque reading of 43 foot-pounds, right in the middle of the scale, that's where it's going to be the most accurate, is in the middle of its scale. So if I've got a 7 foot-pound reading, get one of these, do the math, 7 times 12, 96 inch-pounds, set it to 96 inch-pounds, and you're more apt to be more accurate when the reading is in at or near the middle of the scale of the wrench you're using.
Why is that?
It's because it uses a spring to indicate when you reach the torque spec, and that spring is neither accurate when it's fully compressed nor very accurate when it's fully released. But somewhere in the middle of that compression of that spring, it becomes more and more accurate. Okay?
So do you have to include a variance in that if you're doing it the low end or the high end?
No.
No.
No, you just, that's why if you see mechanics, a lot of them will have wrenches, several different torque wrenches of different ranges. Like, you know, you have a wrench from 0 to 100. You'll have one from 50 to 200, or however Snap-on sells them. And then you'll have one from 150 to 375. And then, you know, 200 to 500. And so he's got a vast scale where he can pick a reading and put it at just about the middle of one of those torque wrenches that he has. Right? And you could spend, with the way prices are now, you can have $4,000 worth of torque wrenches.
Yeah.
Right? Two 3/8 drives, 2 1/2-inch drives. That's about it. You pick a 3/4 drive, that's another $1,000.
So what, I've seen some electrical ones,
You know, I've got my,
digital, yeah.
well, here's the question I asked Snap-on and they can't give me an answer. If the battery on that digital torque wrench is weak, is it still accurate? They don't know. Or he won't tell me, I don't know.
And they always tell you to take the batteries out of it, and there's no room in the case to leave your batteries out
Yeah.
and your cap there.
Yeah.
I don't know, I don't like them, I'm a clicker.
Yeah, because they got some now that I do a porch, it's like the backup camera. Beep, 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 click. I don't need that shit. It's got the green lights, right? It's got the green light. Beep, 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 click. I don't need that crap.
They even vibrate more as you get closer.
Yeah. I mean, really. It's a freaking gimmick.
Yeah.
Who's that, Snap-on or Mecco?
Both.
Dude. Both. Everybody's doing it.
Everybody's doing it.
They're
Cornwall.
expensive too.
Oh, yeah.
I
Yeah.
like them.
The
though.
half inch,
That's all I have.
the
Is
half
it really?
inch 300 pound is like 500, 600 bucks.
Yeah. I mean, that's my opinion. I'm old school. I've been turning on a torque wrench since 1975, back in my high school days. You know, I started out with the old beam with the pointer. How accurate is that? About 20%, plus or minus. Okay, is it close enough for what I was doing? Sure. Because the tolerances weren't as tight. The head bolts on my 66 Dodge were, 0 to 1,000. Right, just make sure they're tight. They give you a number so you feel good, right?
Huh?
Does it still click when you?
It doesn't click, it vibrates.
It
Oh,
shakes.
vibrates, okay.
Yeah,
It's got a shaker in it.
Green and red light?
yeah.
Yeah, and it's closer you get they flash.
When it's getting closer, it turns orange and it's got 3.
Does it got the tone that goes
three
beep beep
LEDs,
beep 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 beep?
so As you're getting closer, it goes from 1, 2, 3, and then green.
What's
Does
that about-
it does it have the tone that starts?
So it doesn't click?
No, it doesn't.
Which one is it? Snap-on or the?
Yeah, they're both not.
So it doesn't click.
It was sucks about that, when they go
That's-
out,
there's
the
no
LED goes out,
satisfaction, dude.
there's no warranty on
It's the
torque
same thing, you
wrenches.
get a vibration out of it. You
You don't even those,
No, there's no warranty. Yeah, they're not warranty.
you paid $1,000 for that thing, you paid
$1,000 and no warranty? Wow.
Well, the only
Because
thing
if
they warranty-
Snap-on warrantied it, they'd have to warranty its accuracy.
The only thing they warranty is the heads.
Yeah, and everything else inside here is not warranted.
They do have a 2-year warranty.
Yeah, but it's not on the calibration of the wrench.
Oh.
There might be some parts that are covered, and it's probably the ratcheting head, and that's it.
Yeah, that's probably.
Because everything else is related to how accurate the wrench is, and they're not going to warranty that for 5 years because they don't know how you treat the wrench. You know, you get. I watched a guy on Long Beach. He was torquing a bolt that broke. God damn it! He chucks his freaking wrench, and I was like, What are you doing? The freaking bolt broke. It's not the bolt's fault. It's probably the nut loose behind the freaking torque wrench, you moron. And he chucks his wrench. He goes over, he grabs it, he picks it up, slams it in his box, closes it. Oh yeah, I want that guy tightening my shit.
I used to work by a guy that whenever he got mad, he would toss the wrench to the wall and go to his cabinet and punch it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It gets frustrating
So-
sometimes.
It does. It does. I mean,
So, if they don't warranty it, then when you have them come out and adjust it to see if it's accurate, then how do you know to trust them?
You gotta pay for that.
yeah,
That's
it's about $60 to get your wrench calibrated off the Snap-on truck, and you get it back in about a week, two weeks, depending on your Snap-on.
But they do warranty like the heads and or
Once the spring goes, they're
simple
done.
simple stuff. But the inner parts they don't warranty.
So
But you can get them rebuilt for
200.
yeah, but then again, you got to trust your tools. All right, you got to trust your tools. Okay,
I have a proto that's 40 years old. It's from 78, 79. I think my old
Yeah.
man said he bought it, and it's still good.
Yeah.
I had it checked a couple years ago.
Because he took care of it. Right? The guy that's chucking his shit, right? My wife's got a late 40s, early 50s quarter-inch drive Snap-on ratchet. It's the kind where it's got the layered metal with the rivets, and then the ratchet's in between it. It's a cool little deal. I'll bring it in next time I think about it, but I still use it. When I can't find mine, it's this will work.
Yeah, good tools last forever.
Yeah.
Kind of
Now, yeah, they do, if you take care of them. You know, my brother's still got my 1975 fine tooth snap-on ratchet. Not the coarse like you get today. You can't buy, I don't know if you can find the fine tooth ratchets. They're not easy though, you have to order them. They don't carry them on the trucks, they don't come in sets. And the head on my ratchet's rebuildable, I get a kit and rebuild it. It's got two little Phillips screws that take it apart. I don't think you can rebuild the new snap-on ratchets, can you?
I don't have any ones.
Yeah, I know. And the price is ridiculous. Okay, so when you think about torquing, it's basically a fulcrum and a lever. Okay, so here's my fulcrum, the center of my socket, and my lever is the length of the handle. So if I got a 1 foot handle and I apply 50 foot-pounds of torque, I'm getting 50 foot-pounds of torque. If I've got a 2 foot handle, okay, and I apply 25 foot-pounds of torque, I'm getting the same 50 foot-pounds, but I'm using less effort. It's just physics. It's like when you're working on a job and you grab your standard wrench and you're trying to break a bolt loose and it doesn't come loose, you go back, you get your long-handled wrench, and you pop that bad bear loose. You use a longer lever. Same story here. Okay? Now, the question comes in about adapters. And if I've got an extension this way on my ratchet, do I have to change my setting here?
As long as it's 90 degrees.
Okay. Right answer to the question I didn't ask. Okay. I'll ask that question here in a minute. But if I put a 14-inch extension here, so I'm torquing a bolt here up here, do I have to change the value of my setting on my wrench? No. Because I got arguments this morning. Yeah, you do, because you got to calculate the torque loss and the freaking extension and blah, blah, blah. Not, yeah. Now, if I'm standing here and torquing something across the street, yeah, there might be a problem, right?
Buy better extensions if they're flexing.
Yeah, exactly. Now, the answer you gave to the question I didn't ask relates to this. Okay? If I'm using this arrangement and the torque spec for that bolt's 100 foot-pounds, do I set my wrench to 100 foot-pounds?
No.
No, I don't. Because this adapter goes beyond the boundary of the wrench. This wrench is calibrated for this length. So when I put my setting on the wrench, it's calibrated for a 24-inch wrench. Well, it's not 24 inches anymore. It's the wrench plus the length of the extension. A longer lever. Well, this can't accommodate a change in the length of the wrench. It's not designed that way. Okay, so you have to use a formula to recalculate the setting on your wrench. Oh, imagine that, I got it. How about that, Lloyd, eh? Alright, so my original torque spec is 120 foot-pounds, and the length of my wrench is, what is this, 10 inches. The formula is the original foot-pounds times the length of the wrench over the length of the wrench plus the length of the adapter. So the length of the wrench is 10 inches. The length of the adapter measured from the square to the edge is 2 inches. So this particular formula, I've got 120 times 10 over 10 plus 2. I've got 1,200 over 12. So the new setting would be 100 foot-pounds. The delivered torque would be 120. Y'all see how that works? Okay? Now how critical is it? Well, depends on the range of spec that the manufacturer gives you. If they tell you torque the bolt to, 80 foot-pounds, and they want exactly 80 foot-pounds, well then you better do the formula, right?
And you measure on the adapter from the center of your opening to the center of your square.
Right, center of the opening, so I would measure from here. Actually, draw a measuring line from the jaws, and into the center of the drive square. So see, this lines up, so 2 inches.
Is there really a need for that type of adapter?
Yes.
Is there?
Oh yeah.
Can you
The
just,
steering arm bolt on the spindles on a disc brake.
The caliper bolts,
Caliper bolts.
they have that real long.
Those black ones. little flag extensions.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So you have to add to those then? The ones that just go to actually torque them?
The straight ones?
Yeah.
No.
not that I-
If
Okay,
you're
it's not-
90, but
If-
there's
if-
a
if this-
adapter that's long that they sell to do the man axles.
yes,
It's got a 12-point head on it,
Mhm.
27 millimeter,
yes.
to take because those bolts are 288 foot-pounds.
And we use it on the steering arms too.
Correct.
On the front spindles and the caliper bolts. But because I can't, if I swing this adapter around to 90 degrees, because it's not extending beyond the boundaries of the wrench, I don't have to do anything. Right? But if it extends beyond the boundary of the wrench, then yeah, I have to calculate the equation. Now, because of access, I have to extend it beyond the wrench. There's no way around it. So then, yeah, you should be doing the math.
So it wouldn't be a good idea to use a little extension breaker bar, like a pipe that goes over the handle? And
Well, no,
extends
that's
to
not affecting the length of the wrench. What that's doing is increasing your
Length.
input. The wrench is still this long with the pipe on it, you're pushing down. The only thing you're doing is now that I've got an extension on the end of the wrench, I don't have to put so much effort to get to my torque spec.
Right.
As long as the working end of the wrench isn't changed in length because of an extension, back here, do what you want. Now, of course, the wrench manufacturer, because if I put a pipe on it, I'm putting it over this, they would say, well, we'd really rather you not do that. If I'm putting a pipe on my torque wrench, I'd actually be looking for a bigger wrench. Because you'll mess it up.
So what you do here, you deduct the,
No, I'm not
Well-
deducting, I'm adding.
you add the 12,
So I'm taking the length of the wrench, and I'm taking the original torque spec, and I'm multiplying them, right? Then I'm taking the length of the wrench, and I'm adding the length of the adapter, and then I'm dividing
I always keep it at
this
90.
by that.
Yeah,
Okay.
so if you keep it at 90 degrees, you
Came
don't
up
have
to
to do
100.
that.
Okay.
But if you're in a situation where.
I mean, that's a relatively clean math
Past
example,
90, or like he's showing right there.
okay? They're not all gonna be that clean and easy. You're gonna need a calculator, and you'll come up with something like
Even if you use
88
stuff
third
like
foot-pounds, so you
I
could
never,
run.
I never had
What
to
do you
do
call
that.
that? Gross.
Well, and that's a good point. He
But
says
those feet are only like an inch.
he brings up a good point. If I've got a torque spec, let's say this torque spec is 100 to 120 foot-pounds, and you get a lot of specs like that, then I probably wouldn't, I'd probably still do it because
Don't wanna bring it.
if I set it to the original setting with that extension, I'm going to be beyond my range. So you still have to do the math. Just this particular math puts you at the bottom end of that torque range. Okay, so you still have to do the math. Okay, so now this is a breakdown. I didn't do this. I got a picture of it. I figured if I take my torque wrench apart, I might not get it back together. Okay. So this is a breakdown of what is actually inside the wrench. And you can see there's your paw, your cam assembly, your string, your positive engagement spring cup, and various other components. And it doesn't even look like it's a Snap-on. It looks like it's a Kentmore wrench, but they're probably made similar. Okay, so when the guy calibrates it, what he probably does is he shims your spring or whatnot over the years. But one of the things you have to do when you've got a dial indicator type torque wrench, that's what they call these dial indicator type wrenches, is when you're done, you set it to the lowest setting. Now I've asked guys, well, what if I just unscrew it all the way till it stops? I suppose that works too. Okay, but what you don't want to do is leave it compressed. Oh, okay, I'm done, and you leave it at the setting that you had it. And that just takes the spring out of the spring. Okay? And then that affects your calibration. Now, it's like, oh, I got done with my wrench and I put it in my box overnight. I came back and I realized, oh crap, I didn't back it out. Is it ruined? Probably not. But if you put it in your toolbox and you leave it compressed and you come back 2 months later, yeah, you're probably going to have a problem. Probably going to have a problem. At that point, I'd send it and have it recalibrated. Just because if you guess and say, oh, it's going to be okay, and you're wrong, you might find yourself snapping off fasteners or not applying the bolt where that's required and it's gonna affect the clamp load. We're gonna get into that here in a minute. Okay? So that's what, shit, I can't remember if I want that back down or not. Okay. That's why you shouldn't, why don't they make these contrasting for us old guys?
3D.
Huh?
3D.
That'd be awesome, holographic.
Well, they have them digital now.
Well, that's their way of trying to ease you old guys into the digital stuff, right? I have another type of torque wrench that you're all probably very familiar with. Okay, these are a little easier on the eyes. Okay. Okay, I just turn this to the value I need. Okay, once I get it there, I lock the lever closed and we're good to go.
Twin beam.
Is it? Yeah. That's what they call them? I don't know the mechanics of how this works. I don't have an exploited view like that. Okay?
You want to take that one apart?
No.
But those are more accurate through the whole,
So I just turn the dial. And you got the little notch here. You line it up to whatever value you want. Lock it in place. The ratcheting head would go onto here. So this is probably,
That looks like a 3/4.
I was gonna say probably 3/4. Yeah. it won't
600
have-
foot-pound?
Yeah.
This one maxes out at, 600. Short for the tires though.
That's that.
No, they haven't.
It's got a long-
Adapter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably
It's
slide.
about this size.
Yeah, but some bonehead riveted
Yeah,
this on. I don't think that's snap-on. I think that's something we did. But,
No, that looks original.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's original.
yeah. So, like, I have a snap-on 3/4 drive ratchet and bar. So I can take my ratchet head off my handle, because this ratchet set has a 24-inch handle, 36-inch handle, and 48-inch handle. And then I can take my ratchet head and slide it on here. Now I can use it as a torque wrench. Okay. So, that's one thing Snap-on did that I like when it comes to the larger stuff. Okay, and again, these are precision tools, so, well, it's not one of these, so I can throw it into my box. Wrong answer. Okay, now, out of habit, when I get done, and I don't know if it's required or not, but I always turn it down to the lowest setting and put it in my box. Does it matter? I don't know.
The twin beams, it doesn't.
Yeah, but I just do it anyway, because this thing actually turns the fulcrum up the beams, right? Okay, that's what I figured. But just out of habit, and I'm not hurting it by doing that. Okay, but I will hurt that other style if I don't. Okay.
That one also has a spring inside.
No, what this does, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Israel, that as I turn this,
I don't remember.
as I turn this, I know. As I turn this screw, there's a shaft with a fulcrum that moves along these beams. And as I change where this fulcrum's at, I change where the wrench clicks at. Okay, so it's
Yeah,
twin
so it
beam or-
doesn't have a spring.
doesn't have a spring.
Yeah,
Called a
so-
sliding fulcrum or a twin beam, like you said. That's the theory. I'm sure the mechanics of it are a little more precise than that, but that's kind of how it
When you
works.
say they're more precise throughout the range.
I've heard that. I don't doubt it.
Yeah.
I don't doubt it. I like these. Number one, they're easier to see. And number two, I can set them quickly. Whereas with this, I'm up here squinting and like I'm in the shop trying to get the right light, Because when I started, we didn't have the bitchin' LED headlight. We didn't have LED lights at that point. My first electric impact was whopping 7.2 volts. If that tells you anything. That tells you how
Hook up
old.
to a car battery?
Yeah, the problem was those cables kept getting in the way, man. Oh yeah, things have changed. Things have changed a lot since I started on the floor in '86. Some of you weren't even born then. I'm turning 21 next week. When were you born?
99.
I'd already hurt myself by then. 99, holy crap. What day?
February 25th.
I'm trying to think if I remember what I was doing on that day in 1999. If I can, I'm like, fuck, I gotta leave, man. I'm done. All right.
You were road testing a bus.
I very well could have been. What time were you born? Midnight, yeah? I was road testing a bus. All right. Now, this is a little video by a technical college. I want to say like Wyoming Technical College by a couple of professors to demonstrate the effect of these kind of extensions, or actually to end the debate, because You could ask 50 mechanics and 25 will say, yeah, if I use an extension, I gotta change this. And you go, well, why? And they're like, I don't know. Which is fine. And the other 25 will say, oh no, it doesn't matter. Well, this proves the point that most common length extensions will not have an effect on the torque setting of the wrench. And it's kind of a cool little video.
How long as you keep it straight?
Right, yeah, exactly. You don't go all LGBTQ on me.
Okay, the other day we did a video on Crowfoot and extensions. If you guys saw this one, it's in our playlist on torque wrenches there. Popular question, we do this because we've done it numerous times, is if extending the extension this way and just going out versus changing angle would make any difference. And according to the manual, it says no, it says it doesn't matter. So we thought we'd go ahead and prove that. We've got a torque wrench here set at 35. Okay. And I'll go ahead and just do the tool itself first here. Not too bad, okay? And then I'll just do it again. Just do it. Pretty accurate. So we thought we'd take just a small extension, a standard 3-inch that a lot of us use. And what we found is that if you support the head, it's like really super legit, but I'm gonna just not do anything. I'm just gonna push the wrench just as normal here. Pretty good. So let's just get crazy here. And let's just put a bunch of extensions out here, okay? And we're gonna go ahead.
And
Now this one,
push it up.
not only for trying to keep this angle the same, but even think of the fasteners we're trying to, torque down or whatnot. It's better to keep it at that same rested angle, if you will. So what I'm doing is I'm gonna keep this straight. I'm just gonna kind of set my hand here to support it and then apply the torque. I don't have Grant's master arm on here. I'd say 35 and 35. I think I tied you now.
Tied me for the
Okay. All right, and then Bailey made up a good point here. He said, well, hey, let's use another common tool. We'll go ahead and just put a universal tooling on here. Because this now, you can see what happens here. I'll kind of do it off, okay? You can see how it changes it here. So we roll that around back to that 90 here. Okay, and then I'll go the other way. And you can see that that's going to affect your applied torque. Thank you for thinking of this. Star, good job. Awesome. So guys, in our summary here, we've just proven the fact that it's that same thing. That if we want to be consistent, we need to really use these tools just as described and lined out in our owner's manuals. So
I should get
there
that
it is.
part number off
You can
that
try
machine.
numerous different brands. It doesn't
Did you
matter.
see
You
it?
can have the same effect. Going this way makes no difference. Doing any type of torque where you put an extension like
Oh, did
this, and any of these angles outside of 90, from our other video we said, this lessens the torque, this increased the torque. So there's your, it's pretty hard to dispute that right there on extensions make no difference whatsoever. Make it a great day and
Keep wrenching.
keep wrenching.
So, there you go. Now, the interesting thing I didn't expect to see on that video was the effect of a universal on your torquing. And you saw it can be pretty dramatic. I mean, he had the wrench on that particular video, the wrench was set to 35 foot-pounds, which is fairly low in the torquing world. Imagine if you had that thing set to a higher spec of about, 70, 75 and you're on a universal, what the difference would be. You saw there that when he had it, low, and he torqued it, it was 21.08, so he missed the mark by 14 foot-pounds, almost half. You can't be applying clamping loads and miss your spec at 14 foot-pounds. That's gonna make a world of difference. Okay, so I like that little video. I think that's Wyoming Institute of Technology or something like that, WIT.
Tech.
Yeah, Wyoming, right?
I wonder if the different types of universals make, have a different effect on them, because, those universals flex a lot.
Yeah.
And they break a lot. That
I would imagine if you took an impact universal, which is more of a ball socket with that limiting pin, if you'd be a bit more accurate. I suspect you would, because you wouldn't be allowed to go to as great of an angle.
Yeah.
Which, that actually, if I had a machine, that would be an interesting test. That would be actually worth doing.
And Matco sells those slotted ones. They're universal that are kind of like slotted. There's
Oh.
like a gear in there.
Yeah. Oh, that'd be interesting.
So I'm just,
Well, we
we could actually do that test without the machine. We could torque a bolt to a specified value straight and then put the universal on it, see if it reaches, set it to 35 and see where it clicks.
No, it will. What you should do is do the universal first.
And then
Oh,
check it straight.
yeah, they see.
35.
Okay, yeah, I knew there was some way you could do it. I'm having a 186 processor day.
You go across the street, Harbor Freight, they sell a little tool that tells you if it works.
Yeah, yeah, I believe that.
Use it once, throw it away.
Disposal. You
Just
have
for
to-
the test.
You don't have to worry about cleaning it because you're not going to have it that long, right? All right, so that's kind of a slick little video about the effective extensions on it. And again, you could go downstairs and ask the guys downstairs, well, if I put an extension on my torque wrench, do I have to lessen the value? Some will say yeah, and some will say no. I was going to say the smart ones will know, the dumb ones will just don't. But that's been an ongoing debate for many years. Even when I was on the floor back in the 80s, it was like, oh yeah, no, you're using a 36 inch. You gotta change it to a little more because of the, they have all kinds of reasons why. So
That's what I always thought when I was on the floor. You put an extension on it, you're gonna alter the torque value.
I was taught that too. I was showed that too. And I think where that comes from that kind of extension versus the one that the 36 inches. So now you've probably all seen or heard of torque angle, torque to yield, torque template. What was the other one you mentioned this morning? Torque turn. Okay, they're all referring to the same thing. Back in the day, the engines weren't as, powerful. Okay, so clamp loads weren't super critical, and we'll talk about clamp loads here in a bit. So you could get an old, 70s, early 80s era big cam 350 Cummins, and you torque the head bolts to 140 pounds, and that would be it. Okay. Now that engine, that big cam 350, made about 325 horsepower and about 600